Hey folks, welcome back to Stoic Quotes 365. Let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered what happens when someone walks away from you, only to feel your absence in ways they never expected? It's a phenomenon that's more common than you think, and rooted deep in human psychology. Today, we're diving into why your absence might just be their most profound loss. Here's the truth. When someone decides to leave or pull away, they often underestimate the impact of your presence in their life. They might think they're moving on, but over time, subtle realizations start creeping in, memories that linger, questions that replay, and feelings they can't quite explain. These are the moments when they begin to feel the full weight of your absence. And that's exactly what we're uncovering today. Human psychology is fascinating, folks. Our brains are wired to appreciate things most when they're no longer within reach. Think about it. When something is readily available, we tend to take it for granted. But the moment it's gone, its true value becomes crystal clear. This isn't just about romantic relationships. It's about the connections and bonds we share with anyone who's meaningful in our lives. Your presence isn't just about what you do. It's about the emotions and memories you leave behind. Now, you might be asking yourself, why does this happen? If they didn't appreciate me when I was there, why would they feel my absence so deeply? Well, folks, that's the paradox of human nature. The brain often focuses on what's missing rather than what's present. It's why people tend to obsess over the one thing they don't have, rather than appreciating the abundance in front of them. This phenomenon is even stronger when someone walks away from a connection with real depth and meaning, because no matter how far they go, they can't escape the echoes of what you brought into their life. Today, we'll be exploring this in depth through 7 key ideas. These aren't just theories, they're insights rooted in psychology and human behavior. From the memories that refuse to fade to the void they feel when you're gone, each point will help you understand why your absence can be so powerful. And here's the kicker. Folks, this isn't about revenge or hoping they regret their choices. It's about recognizing your worth and the lasting impact you have on others. This journey isn't about dwelling on the past. It's about understanding the dynamics of connection and how they continue to influence people, even after the ties are seemingly severed. Each point we'll discuss today is a step toward embracing your power, your standards, and your ability to leave a legacy that lingers in ways you might not even realize. So, if you're ready to uncover the psychology behind why your absence speaks louder than your presence ever could, stick with me. We're diving deep into the human mind and the subtle ways it processes loss, memory, and longing. Trust me, folks, you don't want to miss this. Before we dive in, if this resonates with you so far, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. This channel is all about uncovering the truths that help you navigate relationships with confidence and wisdom. And hey, leave a comment below if you've ever felt like someone didn't fully realize your worth until you were no longer in their life. I'd love to hear your experiences. All right, folks, let's jump into the first point. Number 1, the memories that refuse to fade. All right, folks, let's start with something we've all experienced. Memories that linger, the ones you just can't seem to shake. You know what I'm talking about. Those moments that sneak up on you when you least expect them. Maybe it's a song on the radio, a familiar scent, or the way sunlight hits a certain spot. Suddenly, you're right back in a moment you thought you'd moved past. That's the power of memory. And it's one of the reasons they feel the loss of you more than you might realize. You see, our brains are wired to hold on to emotional memories, especially those tied to strong connections. When someone spends time with you, shares experiences, and builds a bond, their mind isn't just logging the facts, it's recording the feelings. Every laugh you shared, every deep conversation, and even the quieter moments of just being together, they all leave an imprint. These aren't just memories. They're emotional bookmarks that tie certain feelings to you. Here's where it gets interesting. The more unique the experience, the stronger the memory. Think about it. Ordinary moments are forgettable, but the ones that stand out, those stick with you. If you've ever created meaningful, out-of-the-ordinary moments with someone, chances are those memories are playing on a loop in their mind, especially when you're no longer in their life. Maybe it's the way you made them feel seen, or the way you handled a situation with kindness or humor. Those unique traits of yours, they're unforgettable. Now, here's a little psychology for you. When we lose someone from our lives, our minds don't just focus on the negatives. In fact, quite the opposite. Our brains have a funny way of romanticizing the past, highlighting the good times while downplaying the bad. It's called rosy retrospection, and it's one of the reasons they might find themselves missing you even more over time. The tough moments fade, but the highlights, those shine brighter. And if you were someone who brought a lot of joy, comfort, or growth into their life, they're likely feeling the weight of your absence in a very real way. But let's flip this for a moment, folks, because this isn't about them pining over you while you sit on a pedestal. This is about recognizing the value you brought to the table. Those memories that refuse to fade are a testament to the unique energy and presence you carry. They're reminders of the impact you had and still have, even when you're no longer in their immediate circle. What's powerful here is that these memories don't just pop up randomly. Often, they're triggered by the most mundane things. Maybe it's something you said in passing that stuck with them. Maybe it's a habit or a phrase they've picked up from you. Or maybe it's a place you went together that now feels different without you there. These triggers are everywhere, and each one brings a piece of you back into their thoughts. Here's the Stoic twist on all of this. While it's natural to leave these impressions on others, it's equally important to understand that you have no control over how they process those memories. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Their memories of you are theirs to hold on to, but your focus should be on living a life that creates meaningful moments. Not for their sake, but for yours. The beauty of this is that the more intentional you are about the way you show up in the world, the more naturally you'll leave a lasting impact on those around you. Let's not forget, folks, that this isn't about dwelling on the past or wondering how much they miss you. It's about understanding the weight and significance of the connections you've built. Those memories that refuse to fade are proof that you've mattered to someone, that you've brought value to their life. And whether or not they acknowledge it, those moments are part of their story now. So, as we wrap up this first step, let's affirm something together. I leave a meaningful impact wherever I go. Drop that in the comments, folks. Let's remind ourselves of the value we bring to every connection we make. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Up next, we're going to explore why the way they view your absence says more about them than it does about you. You don't want to miss this. Let's keep going, folks. Number 2, the endless what-if loop. All right, folks, let's talk about one of the most common traps in modern relationships, the endless what-if loop. You know what I'm talking about. Those constant thoughts and second-guessing about what went wrong, what could have been, or what might still be possible. It's like your mind becomes a movie theater, endlessly replaying scenarios and alternate endings. This loop is exhausting, isn't it? But here's the thing. It's also incredibly common, and understanding it is the first step to breaking free. The what-if loop starts with one unanswered question. Why did they disappear? It's human nature to want answers. When someone pulls away without a clear explanation, your brain works overtime to fill in the gaps. You analyze their texts, replay conversations, and even look for clues in their social media posts. The problem is, most of the time, you're not working with the full story. Instead, your mind creates its own narrative, often based on fear or insecurity. And let's be honest, folks, when you're stuck in this loop, the stories your mind tells are rarely kind. Why does this happen? It's all about control. When someone ghosts or disappears, it leaves you feeling powerless. The what-if loop tricks you into thinking that if you just figure out the right answer, you'll regain that sense of control. But the truth is, this loop doesn't solve anything. It just keeps you stuck in a cycle of overthinking. You're chasing answers that might not even exist. And in the process, you're giving away your emotional energy to someone who isn't even there. Here's where Stoic psychology comes in. Folks, Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. The what-if loop thrives on things you can't control. Their actions, their feelings, their reasons for pulling away. But when you shift your focus to what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, and your emotional state, you start to reclaim your power. So, how do you break free from this loop? First, recognize when you're in it. Awareness is key. The next time you catch yourself spiraling into overthinking, pause and ask yourself, is this helping me? Chances are, it's not. Once you've identified the pattern, it's time to redirect your energy. Instead of focusing on what went wrong or what they might be thinking, focus on your own growth. What can you learn from this experience? How can you use it to become stronger, wiser, or more self-aware? Another powerful tool is setting boundaries with your own thoughts. Think of your mind like a garden, folks. If you let weeds, negative thoughts, grow unchecked, they'll take over. But if you intentionally plant seeds of positivity and self-compassion, your garden will flourish. When a what-if thought creeps in, acknowledge it, then gently let it go. Replace it with something constructive, like a goal you're working toward or an affirmation that reminds you of your worth. It's also important to remember that closure doesn't always come from the other person. It comes from within. You might never get the answers you're looking for, and that's okay. What matters is finding peace in the uncertainty. This isn't about giving up. It's about letting go of the need to control things you can't change. Here's a practical exercise to help. The next time you catch yourself in the what-if loop, grab a piece of paper and write down all your unanswered questions. Then, look at each one and ask yourself, do I really need to know this to move forward? You'll find that most of these questions don't have answers, or at least not ones that will change your current situation. Once you've written them down, tear up the paper or throw it away. It's a symbolic way of releasing those thoughts and making space for what truly matters. Folks, the what-if loop is a tough one to escape, but the good news is you're not alone. Everyone has been there at some point, and with the right mindset, you can break free. The goal isn't to ignore your feelings or pretend the situation didn't hurt. It's to honor your emotions while choosing not to dwell in the past. When you stop chasing answers and start focusing on your own journey, you'll find a sense of freedom that's even more powerful than closure. Comment below, I choose growth over overthinking. Let's affirm our commitment to breaking free from the what-if loop. And if this resonated with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. In the next step, we'll talk about why people watch how you respond and what that reveals about their true intentions. You don't want to miss this. Let's keep going, folks. Number 3. you were truly irreplaceable. All right, folks, let's get real for a moment. There's a reason why certain connections linger in someone's mind long after they've moved on. Because deep down, they know you were truly irreplaceable. Now, this isn't about ego or holding on to the past. It's about understanding what made your presence in their life so impactful and why they may still think about you, even if they've disappeared. Let's unpack this together. First, let's talk about what it means to be irreplaceable. It's not about being perfect. In fact, it's the unique combination of your flaws, strengths, quirks, and values that makes you one of a kind. You didn't just show up in their life as a generic placeholder. You offered something they couldn't easily find elsewhere. Maybe it was the way you listened when they spoke, the way you supported their goals, or even the way you made them laugh when things felt heavy. These moments might have seemed small at the time, but they left an imprint. But here's the thing, folks. Being irreplaceable isn't always about grand gestures. Often, it's the consistency of showing up authentically that sticks with people. Think about it. How many people truly make an effort to understand someone deeply, to see them for who they are, rather than who they pretend to be? That's what sets you apart. When you give someone that kind of genuine attention and care, they don't forget it. Now, let's dive into why this matters, even after they've disappeared. When someone moves on from a relationship or connection, it's easy for them to think they'll find something similar or even better elsewhere. But life has a funny way of showing us what we've lost, doesn't it? Over time, they start to realize that the qualities you brought to the table aren't as common as they thought. They might meet new people, but the depth of connection, the understanding, and the feeling of being truly seen, that's not something you can easily replace. This is where Stoicism offers some powerful insight. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." The same applies here. Instead of dwelling on why someone left or whether they'll come back, focus on embodying the qualities that made you irreplaceable in the first place. That's where your power lies, not in trying to prove your worth, but in living it every single day. Let's be clear, folks, being irreplaceable doesn't mean you're perfect or that they'll come running back. It means you've left a mark that no one else can replicate. And while they might not admit it, they're likely comparing every new connection to the one they had with you. This isn't about holding on to hope or playing games. It's about understanding your value and letting that confidence guide you forward. Here's a practical way to think about this. Reflect on the qualities that made your past connections special. Was it your patience? Your humor? Your ability to stay calm under pressure? These are the things that make you uniquely you, and they're worth celebrating. Write them down, remind yourself of them, and use them as a foundation for your next steps, whether that's in relationships, friendships, or personal growth. Another important point is this. You don't need to convince anyone of your value. When you're truly irreplaceable, your impact speaks for itself. If someone doesn't recognize it, that's on them, not you. Your worth isn't diminished by someone's inability to see it. In fact, their realization might come long after you've moved on and grown into an even stronger version of yourself. Lastly, let's talk about what this means for your future. Being irreplaceable isn't just about the past. It's about how you carry yourself moving forward. When you embrace your individuality and live authentically, you naturally attract the right people into your life. These are the ones who won't need convincing, the ones who will appreciate you for exactly who you are. So, folks, remember this: you were and are truly irreplaceable, not because of what you tried to be, but because of who you are. And that's a gift you bring to every connection, whether they realize it now or later. Comment below, "I am irreplaceable." Let's affirm that truth together. And if this resonated with you, Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Up next, we'll explore how patience becomes your greatest ally in relationships. You don't want to miss this. Let's keep going. Number 4. They feel the void more than you do. All right, folks. Let's get into something that's often overlooked but profoundly true. When someone disappears from your life, they often feel the void of your absence far more deeply than you realize. It might not seem that way at first. After all, they're the ones who stepped away, right? But here's the twist. Distance has a way of magnifying emotions, and the void you leave behind can become something they can't ignore. Let's unpack this. When someone pulls away, especially if there was a strong connection, they're not escaping without consequence. They might convince themselves they need space, or believe they're better off without the relationship for now. But emotions aren't so easily silenced. When you've truly connected with someone, your presence becomes a part of their daily experience. And when you're gone, that absence creates a gap that doesn't just disappear, it lingers. The fascinating thing about this void is how differently it can manifest. For you, the initial pain might feel sharp and immediate. You're acutely aware of the loss because it's right in front of you. But for them, the realization often creeps in more slowly. It's like the silence after a favorite song ends. They may not notice it at first, but as time goes on, the emptiness becomes undeniable. They start to feel the spaces where your laughter, your insights, or your presence used to be. Now here's the important part. This dynamic only happens when you resist the urge to chase. If someone pulls away and you immediately try to close the gap, they don't get a chance to feel that void. Instead, you end up filling it for them, making it easier for them to take your presence for granted. Folks, this is why Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control: our actions, our responses, and how we handle ourselves during these moments. When you hold back and let the silence settle, you allow them the time and space to feel the true weight of your absence. But don't get me wrong, this isn't about playing games or trying to manipulate their emotions. It's about respecting yourself and the connection you once shared. When you refrain from chasing, you're sending a powerful message. I value myself enough to let you miss me. And trust me, folks, they will miss you. The absence of someone who brought value, kindness, and authenticity into their life is impossible to ignore. Let's dive into the psychology behind this. People often process emotions differently based on their attachment style. Someone who pulls away might initially feel relief or independence, but over time, the brain starts associating your absence with the comfort, joy, or understanding you used to provide. They begin to reflect on what's missing, and that's when the void becomes palpable. Here's an example to illustrate this. Imagine you've been a steady, supportive presence in someone's life. They might not notice the weight of that support until they face a challenge without you. Suddenly, the strength and reassurance they once took for granted are gone, and that absence becomes a powerful reminder of your impact. Now, here's where you take control of your own story. Instead of focusing on the void they're feeling, shift your energy toward growth and fulfillment. This isn't about making them regret their decision. It's about building a life that feels whole and satisfying, regardless of their presence. When you focus on your passions, relationships, and personal goals, you're not just filling your time, you're becoming stronger, more confident, and more centered. And let me tell you, folks, that energy is magnetic. Remember, you don't need to broadcast your growth or try to prove anything. The people who truly matter will see it naturally. And as they do, they'll start to realize that while they were feeling the void you left behind, you were becoming someone even more extraordinary. That contrast, their stagnation versus your growth, only deepens the impact of your absence. Before we wrap up, let's affirm one powerful truth. You are enough, with or without them. Their decision to pull away doesn't define your worth. By holding your ground and allowing them to feel the void, you're honoring yourself and creating space for connections that are truly mutual and fulfilling. Comment below. I honor my presence. Let's affirm our value and commit to respecting ourselves in every relationship. And folks, if this resonated with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Up next, we'll explore the value of patience and why waiting, not chasing, is often the most powerful move you can make. You don't want to miss this. Let's keep going, folks. Number 5, drawn to what's now out of reach. All right, folks, let's talk about one of the most fascinating aspects of human psychology, our tendency to be drawn to things we can't have. You've probably noticed it in your own life or observed it in others. The moment something becomes less accessible, it suddenly feels more desirable. When it comes to relationships, this dynamic plays out in some really intriguing ways, especially when someone who was once deeply interested in you starts to pull away. At first, the connection might have felt strong and immediate, like you both were on the same page. Then, out of nowhere, they seem distant, maybe even unreachable. What's happening here? It's not always about losing interest. It's often about the tension created by what's now out of reach. That tension can spark renewed desire, making them feel drawn back to you in ways they might not even understand. The concept is simple. People are naturally wired to want what they can't easily have. When someone begins to sense that they don't fully have you anymore, whether emotionally, physically, or even in terms of attention, it activates a psychological pull. They start wondering, what changed? Why do I feel this gap? And how do I close it? Here's the trick, folks. This isn't about playing games or being manipulative. It's about focusing on yourself and creating space where they can reflect on what they're missing. When you redirect your energy away from chasing and toward becoming, something fascinating happens. You stop being overly available, and that change can create a sense of scarcity, making your presence feel more valuable. It's not about pretending to be unavailable. It's about genuinely shifting your focus to your growth, your goals, and your happiness. This is where the Stoic mindset becomes your secret weapon. Stoics teach us that we should focus on what we can control: our actions, our thoughts, and our emotional balance. When you stop fixating on why they're pulling away and instead start investing in yourself, you take back control of the narrative. You create a version of yourself that isn't dependent on their attention, but still leaves them intrigued. Now, let's talk about why this works. When someone senses they've lost access to you, it triggers something called psychological reactance. This is the feeling we get when something we once took for granted is no longer freely available. It creates a kind of internal resistance. They start wanting to regain what they feel they've lost. That's why distance, when done with authenticity and purpose, can actually strengthen the bond rather than weaken it. Here's an example. Imagine you used to always respond to their texts immediately, but now you've stopped prioritizing that. You're still polite and kind, but you're not as quick to jump into conversations. What happens? They start noticing the shift. They may even begin wondering, are they still interested? Did I misjudge the connection? This uncertainty creates a desire to re-engage, to figure out what's changed and why they're feeling this gap. But folks, here's the most important part. The focus needs to stay on you. This isn't about manipulating someone into wanting you more. It's about becoming someone who naturally commands respect and admiration. When you shift your energy toward personal growth, you're not just creating space for them to miss you, you're also creating a version of yourself that's even more magnetic. Think about this. What kind of person are you drawn to? Someone who's constantly available and seeking your approval, or someone who's confident, independent, and living their best life? The same principle applies here. By embracing the what's now out of reach dynamic in a healthy and authentic way, you become someone they're not just drawn to, but someone they actively admire. Here's a quick exercise for you. Folks, take a moment to reflect on your own life. What are the areas where you can create value for yourself? Maybe it's pursuing a new hobby, focusing on your career, or building deeper relationships with friends and family. Whatever it is, channel your energy into those things. Not only does it make you feel fulfilled, but it also shows others that your life is rich and meaningful, with or without them. So, folks, remember this. Being out of reach doesn't mean being unavailable. It means being so focused on your own growth that your presence becomes a privilege, not a given. When they see that you're thriving and not dependent on their validation, they'll start to feel that magnetic pull again. And when they do, it won't be because you chased them. It'll be because you became someone they couldn't stop thinking about. Let's affirm this together. I focus on my growth. Drop that in the comments below to remind yourself of your power. And folks, if you've enjoyed this journey so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Next, we'll talk about knowing when it's time to walk away. A lesson in strength and wisdom. You don't want to miss this. Let's keep going, folks. Number 6. The legacy of your standards. All right, folks, let's talk about something that often gets overlooked but carries so much weight. The legacy of your standards. It's not just about the boundaries you set or the things you refuse to tolerate. It's about the mark those choices leave on the relationships you build and, most importantly, on yourself. Your standards are like a reflection of your self-worth. When you set them high and stick to them, you're not just shaping how others treat you. You're shaping who you are. Let's start with this. What you allow is what continues. If you tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, or being taken for granted, you're silently sending the message that it's okay. On the flip side, when you hold firm to your standards, you're showing others and yourself that you value your time, your energy, and your emotional well-being. This doesn't mean being inflexible or demanding perfection, but it does mean being clear about what you will and won't accept in your life. Standards act as a filter, folks. They help you sift through the noise and focus on what aligns with your values. Think about it. When you know exactly what you stand for, you attract people who respect and resonate with those principles. It's not just about cutting out the wrong people. It's about creating space for the right ones to thrive in your life. And the beauty of this is that it's not just about relationships. It's about everything you do. Whether it's the way you approach work, friendships, or personal growth, your standards become the foundation for your legacy. But here's the challenge. Holding to your standards isn't always easy. Sometimes, people will test them, either intentionally or unintentionally. Maybe it's someone who's charming but inconsistent, or someone who pushes your boundaries just a little. In these moments, sticking to your standards requires strength, clarity, and a lot of self-awareness. It can feel uncomfortable, especially if you're afraid of losing someone. But here's the truth. The people who truly belong in your life will respect your boundaries, not try to erode them. Now, let's bring in a little Stoic wisdom. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This isn't just about living by example. It's about setting an internal standard for the kind of person you want to be. When you focus on becoming that person, someone who is kind, strong, and self-respecting, you naturally elevate the people and opportunities you attract. Here's a practical exercise for you, folks. Take a moment to reflect on your current standards. Are there areas where you've been compromising? Are there patterns in your relationships that need to change? Write down 3 things you absolutely value in a connection. Things that are non-negotiable for you. Maybe it's honesty, consistency, or mutual respect. These become your compass, guiding you toward relationships that enrich your life instead of draining it. Another important aspect of setting high standards is recognizing the impact they have on others. When you demand respect, it teaches the people around you how to treat not just you, but others as well. Your standards set a ripple effect, encouraging those you interact with to step up their game. This doesn't mean you're responsible for changing others, but it does mean you're setting a tone that inspires growth. Lastly, remember that your standards aren't static. They evolve as you grow. The person you are today might have different needs and expectations than the person you were a year ago. And that's okay. Give yourself the grace to adapt and refine your standards as you learn more about what truly matters to you. So, folks, the legacy of your standards isn't just about setting boundaries. It's about creating a life that reflects your values, your worth, and your growth. When you hold firm to what you believe in, you're not just protecting yourself. You're building a foundation that attracts the kind of relationships and experiences that truly enrich your life. Comment below, "I honor my standards." Let's affirm the importance of respecting ourselves and the choices we make. And if this message resonates with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Next, we'll discuss when it's time to walk away and why it's one of the most powerful moves you can make. You don't want to miss this. Let's keep going, folks. Number 7, the ripple effect of your absence. All right, folks, let's talk about something that's as powerful as it is often overlooked. The ripple effect of your absence. When someone pulls away or disappears, our instinct is often to chase, to try to fill the void they've left behind. But here's the truth. Your absence can be just as impactful, if not more so, than your presence. It's about what happens when you step back. Take a breath and let the space between you speak for itself. Absence has a way of amplifying emotions. When you're no longer in their life, they start to notice the gaps you used to fill, the conversations, the support, the little things that made their day better. People often take things for granted when they're readily available, but when you're no longer there, it forces them to reflect on what they've lost. It's like pulling your hand out of water. The space you leave behind isn't immediately filled. It creates a ripple that moves outward, touching everything. This isn't about being manipulative or playing games. It's about recognizing the value of self-respect and boundaries. When someone disappears or pulls away, the worst thing you can do is scramble to win them back. Instead, let your absence be a mirror, showing them what life looks like without you in it. This creates a space for them to realize your worth on their own terms, without you having to prove anything. The ripple effect of your absence also works in your favor, because it shifts the focus back to you. Instead of expending energy trying to figure out their motives or win their attention, you redirect that energy toward your own growth and fulfillment. People are naturally drawn to those who value themselves, who aren't afraid to walk away when something doesn't align with their worth. Your absence sends a message. I'm not going to chase someone who doesn't see my value. This doesn't mean shutting the door completely or harboring resentment. It's about creating healthy boundaries and allowing the other person to feel the consequences of their actions. If they come back, it's because they've had time to reflect, to miss you, and to understand what they let go. And if they don't, well, folks, that tells you everything you need to know. So, as we close this final step, Remember that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Let your absence speak louder than words, and trust that the ripples you create will carry your value forward, whether they realize it or not. Thanks for spending your time with me today, folks. Remember, understanding why someone pulls away isn't just about them. It's about growing into your strongest, most grounded self. Keep focusing on what you can control and let everything else fall into place. If this video resonated with you, hit that like button, leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights on Stoic relationships. Until next time, stay strong, stay self-aware, and remember, you're worth the connection you're building. See you soon.